Welcome to Cut Up, a video series where I talk about specific scenes in movies and cut them up or bring back nostalgia for some people. This time we're talking about The Electric Grandmother that was released in 1982. This is an NBC 60-minute made-for-TV movie. Never saw it growing up, but my buddy Nate said that he would have to watch this movie at least once a year in grade school, and he loved it every time. I asked some other friends about it, and they too remember seeing this thing in school. Turns out a lot of kids ended up seeing this thing in the classroom, and most of them probably assumed that this was just based on a book or something.
Well, let's not all say hello at once.
It's a really strange story about a family that loses their mother, and instead of the father picking up the slack, he decides to replace her with a robot grandma that shoots liquids out of her fingertips. Kids! Hey, stupid kids! Don't drink any liquids that shoot out of people. This movie sends a bad message. After I watched this thing, I was really thrown off by how weird it all felt. I couldn't really see any educational value in this, so I thought maybe it was lost in translation from the book. So I did a little research and found out that this movie was made in 1982, but it's based off a short story by Ray Bradbury from 1969, which itself is based off a 1962 episode of The Twilight Zone that Bradbury wrote. So the fact that this was written in 1962 explains why it was more socially acceptable for a man to buy a robot than just to learn how to do laundry. This was the 100th episode of The Twilight Zone, and it was called I Sing the Body Electric. I watched it, and it's not that good of a Twilight Zone episode. My favorite part of it was when the grandmother said robot the same way Zoidberg does.
I know you're thinking I'm not a robot, but I'll prove it.
Just because you think you're a robot doesn't make you a robot.
Yeah, so I didn't enjoy it, but I'm a little bit more critical of media, so I looked it up to see what Twilight Zone fans think about it. And turns out not a very popular episode. It's not one of the worst, but it's never in the top lists. When I looked at other lists that had all the episodes ranked, the lowest I saw it at was 127, but the highest I saw it at was 40. So, The Electric Grandma is a made-for-TV movie for kids that is a remake of a middling Twilight Zone episode released 20 years earlier. Okay? That explains a lot about this film. So let's dive into what happens in Electric Grandma, because it's just crazy town, and maybe we could see why people love this thing.
Who are you?
Guido Fantoccini at your service. I believe you're looking for something in a grandmother.
The movie starts out with some really unnecessary narration, but it ends with one of the best lines in the whole film.
I was the oldest, and not supposed to cry.
Remember that, kids. If you're the oldest, and your mom dies, you're not supposed to cry. Otherwise, the commies win. The same week the mother dies, the family is visited by their aunt, who basically accosts them.
Thomas, I want to see those vegetables disappear. And Timothy. Oh, I do believe you need a haircut.
Yeah, get a haircut, kid. I don't care if your mom just died, stupid hippie. The family then has a helicopter show up in their backyard that drops off 3 pieces of a puzzle. Yes, I know, this is weird. This is how things are delivered in this universe. Each piece of the puzzle has one of the kids' names on it. When the puzzle is put together, it starts speaking.
The Fantoccini Electric Grandmother is built to give love to all who need her. Give it a try, give it a try. 541 North Comfort Avenue.
You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game.
The heart puzzle gives them an address to go to with a little bit of information. They decide, why not? Let's check it out.
Let's go get one.
Let's go get one.
And when they arrive, it looks abandoned, so they decide, why not? Let's go inside.
Now wait, don't run, boys. Boys.
Stop, don't come back.
After walking through what is clearly a murder den, the family meets Dr. Fanucci, who helps them build their new grandmother and has a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Allow me to explain my terms. You see, all our grandmothers are made to order on the premises and are sent to families select families, I may say, for a 30-day trial basis. If at the end of 30 days any member of your family is dissatisfied with your grandmother, she's returned to the factory under no obligation to you whatsoever. Now, even a practical man like yourself has got to admit, you've got nothing to lose.
The next morning, the grandmother arrives. In the Twilight Zone episode, the grandma just walks up to the children outside. But in the movie version, they need to do something more epic. So she's delivered via helicopter in a golden Egyptian sarcophagus. Weird. The first thing the grandmother does is serve them breakfast. She cooks them all their meals normally, but when it comes time for drinks, it's finger milk time. That's not even the grossest part about it. The grossest part? She uses the exact same finger for orange juice.
Orange juice, Agamemnon?
Agatha.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Agatha. Oh, I'm afraid I have a terrible weakness when names are concerned.
Ugh, at least wash your hands so I don't get milky orange juice. We then get this shot of the boys playing outside, and then back to the electric grandma filling up a tall glass of finger milk. Is she just filled with milk, just sloshing around inside of her? The daughter gets mad at finger milk grandma when she suggests that she wants to comb her hair.
I'd so love to brush it and braid it for you.
No! You can't do that! Only my mother!
I'm sorry. Agatha.
The next day, Grandma shows us that her fingers aren't only for milk and milky orange juice, but she also has string finger power. You know, which is very helpful when you're flying a kite in the middle of winter. Stupid, you say? Worthless, you say? Well, that's because you're not as smart as old Drippy Fingers over here. She has kids put laundry on the line so it can dry. Well, freeze most likely, but you get the point.
I don't think that's so great.
What'd you say to me, you little shit?
I agree with Agatha. She's the only one who realizes that Electric Grandma sucks. I'm on her side, and the movie knows that we're not impressed yet, so we get this long scene by the fire that explains more about old Milk Jug's capabilities.
I can't get over the things you know. Darwin, Shakespeare, Plato.
I'm a machine made to teach. It's one of my most important capabilities.
She also records everything the family says or does. The only problem is, if you want to see that information, it has to be delivered via muffin.
What was I saying at 3:30 today?
Oh, careful, it's hot.
A muffin?
Break it open.
Holy Toledo, it's flying. That's gotta be the greatest thing I've ever seen.
I don't think that's so great.
Seems like a really wasteful data storage solution, but I guess everything about Electric Grandma is food-based. Next up, Electric Grandma sings a song to one of the kids, but keeps her milk-shooting finger pointed right at him to make sure he listens to the whole thing. After saying goodnight to the boy, and then Agatha, who still hates her, she heads downstairs to charge up for the night.
The only limit to what a machine can do is the limit of one's own imagination.
I'm a machine made to teach. It's one of my most important capabilities.
You can get them to love you, but I never will, never. Just a machine. Just a machine.
I was the oldest and not supposed to cry.
I don't think that's so great.
The next day, we get a little bit more electric grandma teaching and another classic Agatha blow-up.
Don't pay any attention to her, Grandma. She's a horrible grouch.
You shut up!
Agatha, don't speak to your brother that way.
You can't tell me what to do!
Stop, don't come back.
We get yet another electric grandma sleeping scene just 2 minutes after the first one. But this time, Agatha's sick of that soggy-fingered grandma and decides to tell her off before killing her.
You can get them to love you, but I never will, never. You're just a machine. Just a machine. You're just a machine. Just a machine.
Yeah, Agatha! I am unkillable! I will mock you with my hand recording. The next morning, after a quick snowball fight, the father heads inside to talk to Electric Grandma, who's drying clothes via kite again. This time with the window open, so the whole house is freezing. This is the only scene in the whole movie that actually has something to say or can help explain what this story is actually supposed to be about.
I'm so used to thinking of machines as cold and inhuman.
Well, machine is what it does. A good machine does good things. Bad machine does bad things. Could I have some clothespins, please?
I mean, it's a really simple-minded way to look at things. I mean, I say machines aren't inherently bad or good, but it depends on how they're used. But before we can get into any kind of actual thinking, the kite falls from the sky. We find out that it was Agatha who cut the string, but she won't say why. So that night, the dad explains that the 30 days is up, and because not all of them are happy, they must send back the electric grandma. Obviously, the other children are a little upset.
You. It's you.
Send her back. Send her to the scrap heap.
Oh, now, Timothy.
I mean it, Daddy.
Timothy?
The next morning, they prepare to ship the electric grandmother back in her sarcophagus. I guess she's just supposed to get in this thing and then wait for the helicopter to come pick her back up? I don't know. This seems like a really complicated returns process. Doesn't matter though, because Agatha, who at this point has a personality soggier than the grandma's fingers, decides to run off. The electric grandmother chases after her and pulls Agatha out of the road right before getting hit by a car. You tell me which one has the best old lady getting hit by a car scene. I don't know, I think these both pretty much suck. After Agatha realizes that Electric Grandma can't die like her mom, she ends up loving her. So remember, kids, don't ever love anything that can die. Only love machines. This movie was brought to you by Skynet. We then flash forward to the kids growing older and going off to college. It's done in a pretty cool way, with the children running up to her one at a time and each growing older, all while the dad stays the same age. We get the shot of the electric grandma and the father walking back to the house, and the electric grandma says that she's going back to the factory.
Well, back to the factory.
Dear Grandma.
It feels like the movie should be over at this point, but there is sort of an epilogue. We find out that the electric grandma was sent back to the factory, where she sat in a room with other electric grandmothers, repeating information to one another for decades.
Here, listen. This is when she was just a little girl.
Grandma, I love you.
So pretty.
She is then visited by a much older version of one of the boys, who explains to her that all three of the children have grown up and are now all alone. So that means both the boys and the girl Agatha outlived their significant others and apparently their own children. So now that they're old, they'll need Electric Grandmother once again to give them finger milk and prostate checks, hopefully in that order. Electric Grandmother is delivered via sarcophagus once again and immediately starts drying clothes via kite once again. Credits roll. What did I just watch? I mean, I don't really understand the appeal of this story, but I know it's popular. You could watch this whole movie on YouTube, and all of the comments are extremely positive memories about this film. I don't really get it. It doesn't really have a lot of imagination. As far as I can tell, you could replace the electric grandma with a jug of milk, 20 feet of string, and a dryer. It has absolutely nothing to say. It has no lessons to teach. It doesn't add anything to the Twilight Zone version or even explore the idea. I guess if I was a kid, I would enjoy watching this. It's better than doing actual schoolwork, so maybe that's why people liked it.
You'll always be here? Always?
Cross my heart.
If you want to watch this, you can on YouTube or on the Internet Archive, which I discovered after writing this whole thing. It has a better quality version of the movie, and it has that Twilight Zone episode it's based on right underneath it. I mean, the description alone would have saved me some research time too. If you saw this and like it, please let me know in the comments. Maybe you remember watching another film in school that stuck with you. Mine was Watership Down. That cartoon is haunting and only understandable if you read the book immediately beforehand. Make sure to subscribe, but only if you're cool. Give me all your likes. Laters.